Before we get to the content, I just want to remind you guys, we're giving away a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. If you've already done it before, you don't need to do it again. For those of you guys that want to enter for a chance to win multiple Madden 22 copies, well, I decided to do that as well. All you have to do to enter for that is follow me on Instagram or on Twitter. I'm going to pick 5 people from each platform to win, and all you have to do is be following me to enter. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So yesterday I made you guys a video on the Michael Thomas Yeah, this thing. You guys know how I tell you in like every video how you guys should like the video because, well, the NFL tries to copyright claim me. One of the wonderful members of Mike Mafia recommended me using my face so I don't have to consistently recycle the same NFL footage, and maybe I could start hopefully making money off of some of this content. But I apologize if this is a deal breaker for you. I respect that, but I felt like we should have an open conversation on this. It's not going to be on all the time, but it will be some of the time. Worst case scenario, just close your eyes, bro. Yesterday, I made a video on the fact that Michael Thomas and the New Orleans Saints aren't necessarily on the greatest of terms. And as time progressed forward, I knew in my heart of hearts that this was something that was just going to evolve further and further. And when you consider the situation that both the New Orleans Saints are in and that Michael Thomas is in, then you could understand that this is a very complicated issue that is probably going to be a storyline hanging over Michael Thomas and the New Orleans Saints over the next 3 months. So if you guys need a lowdown as to why this rift has formed between Michael Thomas and the Saints, look no further than what Sean Payton said in this interview.
Seems like you guys have known that Michael Thomas needed surgery for a while, but can you just talk about your expectations for him and the state of the receiver position if you have to spend some time without him?
Well, look, it appears we're going to have to spend some time without him. It's disappointing, and we'll work through it with the other players that are here. But the surgery took place, and obviously, we would have liked that to have happened earlier than later. And quite honestly, it should have.
Can you explain? I mean, was there a lack of communication in between, or?
Nope. I'm going to leave it at that.
So there's clear mismanagement of an injury going on here, and Sean Payton makes it sound like it's Michael Thomas's fault. Yesterday, I drew a parallel to what Scottie Pippen endured with the Chicago Bulls in the 97-98 season, which was his final season with Michael Jordan on the Chicago Bulls. I know this is an NFL channel, and I do cover NBA content on my The Flight Mike NBA channel, but it's still a very interesting parallel because Scottie Pippen essentially elected to get surgery later in the offseason for the sole purpose of just smiting the Chicago Bulls and pretty much protesting how horrible his contract is, and the fact that the Chicago Bulls weren't willing to pay him a contract extension despite him being a part of 5 championship teams at the time. This was before he won his 6th, is why Scottie Pippen essentially decided to get surgery later. So when I initially saw that Michael Thomas decided to get surgery way later than he was supposed to, I kind of took it as a slight sign of protest. Now, what validated this entire situation was this Jeff Duncan report that we received on Saturday that states that Michael Thomas ignored calls from the Saints coaches and their training staff for 3 months. Now, this isn't something you typically do when you're recovering from an injury and when you're a team's star wide receiver, although there is a history of a lot of star wide receivers acting like this. But the official report from Jeff Duncan of NOLA.com reported that Michael Thomas ignored multiple calls over a 3-month period as then Saints trainer Bo Lowry, wide receivers coach Curtis Johnson, and head coach Sean Payton all tried to reach him to see how his ankle was doing. Now, I'm not sure if Michael Thomas looked at what Xavier Howard is currently pulling with the Miami Dolphins and successfully pulled with the Miami Dolphins, bear in mind, because Xavier Howard did get a brand new contract as a result of his frustration and his trade request. But bear in mind, Michael Thomas recently signed a contract extension. He gets paid about $19.25 million on average per year. He signed a 5-year deal with the Saints worth $96.3 million, but the deal is very heavily backloaded. So maybe he's frustrated that he's the 5th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL and not the top highest paid wide receiver like DeAndre Hopkins is. Now, here's the weird thing. Michael Thomas literally has been neglecting the Saints medical staff's advice. Thomas was initially advised by the Saints medical staff to have the ankle surgery immediately after the Saints postseason came to an end, but after getting a second opinion, he decided to try a more conservative approach and see if the ankle would heal without surgery. That didn't work, and Thomas ultimately had the surgery in June, and the recovery time from the surgery will cause Thomas to miss several games at the start of the season, and that's what Sean Payton was referring to when he said that Michael Thomas should have had the surgery sooner. I guess Sean Payton's frustration is coming from the fact that if Michael Thomas had stayed in touch with the team over the offseason, the determination that he needed the surgery may have been made earlier, and he may have recovered in time for the regular season. Instead, Thomas disappeared for much of the offseason, and now the Saints won't have him to start the season, and as a result, it's clear from the way you could look at Sean Payton's face as he's given the interview, the New Orleans Saints are clearly unhappy about that. Now, Thomas's only response to this entire situation, which bear in mind, this is a very outspoken wide receiver. Don't forget about the pissing contest he got into with Devontae Parker. Don't forget the fact that this man threw shade at his Hall of Fame QB a week after they played their final game together. And don't forget that this is a man that once punched his teammate in the face in the middle of practice, but that was also swept under the rug. Michael Thomas tweeted out that they tried to damage your reputation, and you saved theirs by not telling your side of the story. So ultimately, at the conclusion of our last video in regards to Michael Thomas, I came and I asked you guys the question of whether or not you think Michael Thomas is about to get traded. And ultimately, the conclusion that we're going to get, and Ian Rappaport is about to confirm this for us all, is the fact that it's not going to be as simple as you think or as black and white as Michael Thomas coming out and saying, hey, I'm demanding a trade or I'm requesting a trade. Because one, he has a huge injury and you can't trade a player that's on the PUP list, and he's going to begin the season on the PUP list. But in addition to that, he has a crazy cap number, and the New Orleans Saints are, at least in my mind, and you could let me know in the comment section down below if you disagree, but they're a team that could potentially contend assuming their quarterback situation is stable. But let's hear it from Ian Rappaport's mouth himself.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear the relationship between Michael Thomas and Saints head coach Sean Payton and the organization, not really in a good place. Not that it's ever going to be fixed, but it is not great right now. And look, the fact that Michael Thomas had surgery in June is not anything that made anyone happy. The team thought and believed that he was going to have surgery right after the season, be fine for the start of training camp. For a variety of reasons, that did not happen. And the fact that he seemed to not be upfront with the organization throughout, none of this is good. So then the question, of course, is, are they going to move forward with him, or are they going to trade him? I would say a trade is certainly not off the table at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints move on from Michael Thomas eventually, but it is complicated. Here's why. He's not healthy right now. He's still recovering from that foot surgery, probably going to start the season on the PUP list, so you're not going to be able to trade him until the trade deadline, and then it's $8 million in dead money this year, $22 million in dead money next year. Not impossible, but not easy either.
And that's why this is going to be a storyline at least going all the way till the NFL trade deadline, because even if the New Orleans Saints wanted to, they can't trade Michael Thomas until he recovers from his injury. So we're going to keep an eye on this. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications for not only a chance to win a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, but to get the latest updates on the NFL. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.